Hare Krishna Guru. My name is Jagadatma Sham, and I like basically the association, and what I am today is because of Bhakti Academy. I'm highly indebted to Bhakti Academy, and I would always recommend it to anyone whosoever I see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm left.
Sorry. We're just.
Hare Krishna. My name is Jay, and everybody said that they like association. So do I. But something else that I would say is Gopinath's Prasadam. It's best.
Finally, an honest man.
Consuming alcohol, so it was so difficult for me to stay there. So I just called him once, and he told me to contact Temple. And I contacted everyone in Shaka and everything, and I made so much friends here in Temple, and about 5-6 times, I think so.
Oh.
Finally, I got selected, and even though I was selected in an interview, they said we particularly not have space at this time, but whenever we have space, we'll let you in. So, and then in 15 days, they called me like, you can come, even the next day. So I was so happy.
Wow, very nice. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Like I used to come to the temple by the Bhakti Academy events, like meditation party we have. So I didn't know that this is the group of Bhakti Academy. I thought they may be the sons or the daughters of pujaris. In and I came to know about that. They are Bhakti Academy, and like they are the students and working professional, and anybody can join.
Ah.
So even I'm so thankful to the Kalakantha Prabhu as well. Like he helped me a lot about, like I didn't know anything about what the academy is on, so I just I came to know it about through the devotees over here.
I see. So you work outside, Kira?
Pardon, Prabhu?
You're working?
I'm a student.
Oh, you're a student. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Good. Okay. And yes, Neil?
I'm old.
Jai. You're old. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Isha. Yeah.
Sure.
Isha.
So, Prabhu, I also used to attend the events hosted by Bhakti Academy. So, I'm the friend she's talking about. We used to come together.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, through the Bhakti Academy events.
Uh-huh.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I started watching some videos of Radha and Krishna. So I don't ever, and I have no idea about Radha stories much. So I was watching some reels and I was interested and I want to learn more about it. And I started looking the books. Then I realized like I'm not getting a genuine book and it was fake in the reels and something. So I thought like let's learn from a particular author. So then I was investigating and I saw that there is a Prabhupada books available in Toronto. Then I started coming here and taking the books. Then I'm interested. Then I applied for it.
Oh, I see. Wonderful. Very good. These are old timers here. And then Rohit. Oh, sorry.
So I used to come on Sundays, specifically to serve the prasadam and everything. So one day I met a brahmachari from Montreal. He came here to distribute the books only, and only that day he said that he's here, and then the next morning he was gonna go, and we had a good chat, like about 15 minutes, and then he distributed me like 3 books. And then he said, and then I had to ask him that if you're gonna be here for the next couple of days. He says that he's leaving next morning, but yeah, he can have me associated with someone else. So he introduced me to Antriksh Prabhu. And then I started talking to him. We had a good chat. Like every Sunday I used to come, and then later on I started talking to everyone else from the BA as well, and that's how I get to know the BA. And later on I just joined.
Did you have as hard a time getting in as Himanshu? Or?
One thing to say, Prabhu. So I recently had chat with Maharaj again, so that I joined in Bhakti Academy, and he told me to pay obeisances to you.
Oh, thank you very
so
much.
I just want to say
Janardhan
that.
Maharaj.
Yeah, Janardhan Swami
Yes,
Maharaj.
please, next time you talk to him. I hope to see him soon. Okay, great.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I've been associating with Bhakti Academy since very long time, but I was not able to join because of my work and studies. I was studying. So recently I finished my studies and just grab the opportunity to get it.
So this is a little gap time for you? Are you working or?
No. I mean, I have completed my study and I'm looking for a job right now.
Okay.
And just trying to utilize the time properly.
Oh, very, very intelligent. Yeah.
And I have get in touch with Bhakti Academy at very first when Brihat Prabhu came and was establishing the Bhakti Academy at the very beginning. When I saw him like doing some kirtan. This was the first day when Brihat Prabhu came in Toronto and doing kirtan in front of Srila Prabhupada. And I was I also came from my work. And I don't know, suddenly like it was like we met together and he introduced me all those things. And since then, it was a great journey.
It's been some years then. You've been waiting for this opportunity. You just came in January? You moved in? Oh, good.
And I've been with you all, I mean like in Shubhilash Prabhu's house once.
Yes.
And I remember that still that memory is so live with you. It was so nourishing.
I thought you looked familiar. It's good to see you again. Good to see you have this opportunity. Who else is new this semester, Rohan?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hey, go.
So first of all, actually, I'm not from Toronto. I live in Halifax. Yeah, and so I serve over there in Halifax ISKCON, and one of our devotee over there mentioned that there is a thing like Bhakti Academy in Toronto, which that person wanted to go really badly, and I was like, you know what, I may never even get a chance because I have a full-time job. My parents lives here. My sister and everyone is here, so I have a full family here. So there is no way possible that I'm going to get a chance to be here. So I totally ignored that. And after I think month or so, Maharaj visited Halifax, and I was serving him for a few days. And out of nowhere, he was like, "Why don't you come to Toronto and we can arrange a Bhakti Academy for you?" And at that time, I had some time off from my work. So even honestly, at that time, I was like, it may not be possible. But one day I just went to one of our senior devotee there, like temple president, and I told him like, you know what, I wanna think about going to Bhakti Academy. And I think within half an hour, I got a text message from Venkatesh Prabhu. He's like, can you fill out this application form? I was like, what's going on? I'm just thinking here.
Telepathy.
Yeah. Right after his message, actually called my temple president, like, what's happening? Like, I just talked to you half an hour ago and I'm getting a message from Toronto. And it's like, I had no idea. I haven't told anyone. And then I fill out the application. And then at that time, because I had off, I was planning to come for 2 weeks of Christmas in December. And then out of nowhere, he texted me again, like, can I have an interview with you? I'm like, for sure, why not? And we had an interview. And then I think Monil Prabhu was also there. And I told them, you know what, I'm coming for 2 weeks. And they're like, just pack up the stuff for 3 months and just come here. I'm like, you know what, let's do it. I remember it was Thursday and Friday I left in the early morning.
Is that right? Just like that?
Yeah, just one day I decided I was here.
And so it's been a month, roughly a month?
Yeah, it's like 2 months now. I came here somewhere in December, January, February.
So overall?
It's life-changing, honestly, because it helps you find yourself. And it helps you find Krishna's devotion as well. So it was a life-changing experience for me.
You're taking these little opportunities in your life to just get some immersion in ashram. Yeah. It's wonderful. Wonderful. And Lisa?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So for the first time, I came as a guest. He's my friend. So he want me to have an experience of how ashram life is. So I joined it for about a week. And then I was suggested by the management that if you want to stay, you need to fill the form. So I was definitely, this is Krishna's mercy or else I won't get this opportunity. So I just joined there.
Wonderful. This is so pleasing. Did we get everybody who's new? Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I saw Brihat Prabhu receive the keys for the ashram and everything back in 2022 on Narshingadev Chaturdasi. So I've seen Bhakti Academy from the very beginning, and I've also seen how the temple was before Bhakti Academy, and so I would occasionally come participate in some of the events, but around early this year, maybe in January, February, but also around May time, I would spend more time with Bhakti Academy. And I remember seeing you at the Muskoka temple opening. We were having a chat, by the water.
By the water, yes.
So I remember that. And then, so I I started to hang out more and more with Bhakti Academy, and Vishaka Prabhu would ask me to join, and I wanted to join last year, but I got cold feet, so I didn't end up coming. But this year, I felt like I should just take the plunge, and I've been here since August.
What do you think so far?
I really like it. I told Vishaka Prabhu in some of our check-ins that I'm not sure if I'm necessarily becoming more Krishna conscious, but I'm definitely receiving a lot of friendship and a lot of affection and things that I felt like I didn't have in things that I felt that I didn't have in like the good type of affection and friendships that I didn't have before, and I'm receiving a lot of that now.
Wonderful.
And
beautiful.
I'm grateful for that.
That's so nice. So I gather you're from a devotee family.
Yes.
How many are from devotee families? Not everyone all at once here. Okay, three. So, okay, you're what we call organics. You know what organics are, right? Everyone know? Oh, okay. Okay, organics are those who are raised as devotees, and those who are new to it are called GMOs. It's a Gauranga modified organism. So, okay, yes. So I'm also a GMO. So, you know. How many here are in school?
One more, Nechmia, who's not here.
Okay, thank you. And how many are working? So remote, you're able to work remotely? Okay. Check it out. So I really was very pleased to hear how this family mood is what seems to be the most common experience that you're sharing as an outstanding experience in Krishna House. This is what Srila Prabhupada did in the very early ashrams, where he was able to create this sense of shared mission, shared purpose, understanding the goal of human life, understanding our how we have our whole life in front of us here, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. This is a time in your youth when usually people are doing a lot of nonsense just because they can. Yeah? And you're very intelligently investing this. It's like a good financial investment. You make an investment when you're young and then you let it sit and it matures, right? More and more. Spiritually, this is exactly what you're doing now. You get this time in the ashram and it's like a permanent deposit and it just keeps bearing interest. And the older you get, like when you're over the hill, like me, like I'm 71 this year, and on death's door, you look back at your life and feel like, if nothing else, I kept practicing Krishna consciousness all these years. And I had a purpose and a trajectory and a goal in my life to go back to Godhead. Whatever else may happen in this world, in this life, that meaning is always there. And that gets riper and sweeter and more fulfilling as the years go by. For me, the ashram experience was absolutely a must. And that introduced me to the culture with which I was very unfamiliar. It introduced me to the idea of spiritual friendships, where we're friends not due to some shared sense gratification, but because we are advancing together. I really appreciate, Venkatesh Prabhu, what you're saying. It's also a great joy for me to see how others are awakened and enlivened in Krishna consciousness. So I just congratulate you. Thank you very much, Vishaka Prabhu, for keeping it going. We all appreciate you. The ashram leaders.
Yes, there was Shi, Amala, Monil, Venkatesh, and actually everyone, even Nityananda.
Even Nityananda.
Yes, he does. Jagadappa, they all did a very good job. It's actually the residents.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's very hard to give a compliment here in this session.
It's like a hot potato. All right. So would you like to discuss anything in particular? Any spiritual questions? Any questions about ashram life and Temanchi?
My question to you would be like, you've been doing Krishna consciousness for such a long time. You've been in Krishna consciousness for such a long time. For all these years, what kept you going?
Really, it was the experience of the transformative experience of the ashram. Before I moved in the ashram, I was very depressed. I was seeking. I felt I was despondent that there is no truth in this world. Nothing had meaning. And when I discovered Krishna consciousness, and after a couple of months in the ashram, I felt as happy as I had been as a child. I didn't realize I would ever be that happy again. And it just kept going, and it kept getting better. Yeah, and so that transformative experience will always stay with me. Yeah, that's I can definitely tell you that for me was it. And then taking initiation vows. I've taken them seriously, always kept them, and that not only keeping them, but putting them as putting chanting as a priority. Doing that each day is so stimulating. My wife of 43 years, Chita Mitra, and I both very much in the habit of resting early, rising early, chanting, doing our spiritual practices, study, writing, creative things in the morning as early as possible. Because whatever you do in the morning, you're putting the best part of the day to use, right? Right. So yes, it's easier. We're retired, so we have a little more flexibility in our schedule, and yet with determination, anyone can do that. It's just unless there's something special going on, just be in bed as early as you can. And then you can rise, be rested, and chant nicely.
So what I understand is the life in ashram helped you?
Definitely.
And then you took your vows seriously?
Yes.
Especially the chanting?
Yes.
And then early to bed and early to rise?
That's pretty much it.
So you said with determination, everybody can do it. So my question would be like, in those situations where things get harder in life, how do you keep going in that moment?
Yes. The hardest thing I ever went through was a divorce. My ex-wife left me after a short marriage. And she wasn't so serious about Krishna consciousness. But for me, I took that marriage very seriously. And so that was really devastating for me. I was 28. And the steadiness of chanting kept me going. Sometimes you feel like you're just kind of going through the motions. And yet, that's a trick of the mind to say, okay, well, this really isn't making you feel better. This really isn't resolving the problem. So the mind has so many lame excuses to stop practicing and stop chanting. So I would say working through that ended up being a very strengthening experience. And if you have just that conviction of chanting and being determined to do it every day, the emotional side of life may come and go. The ups and downs may come and go. The health issues may come and go. They will come and go. And that's especially if it's a morning activity, it's a constant. It just kind of creates a little bit of detachment over things that we might otherwise obsess about, right? Like we're going through a difficulty and we might just tend to be really dwelling on it. Chanting creates a little daylight and helps us remember that these things are all going to change. Yehi samsparshaja boga dukkha yonaya evate. In the Gita, Krishna says that the intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery that arise from sense perception. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them. So as the pains come and the pleasures come, we let them go. Chanting creates that detachment. So, may I share a poem with you, a little poem?
Yes, for sure.
It's about chanting. It's short, so. No. It goes, the lessons that Prabhupada taught us, a treasure that never will end. The ecstasy bhakti has brought us, the service, prasadam, and friends. The many long roads we have traveled, the many digressions we've made. Just tapestries coming unraveled, exposing an empty charade. The pains and the pleasures of living, these bodies we soon shall not need, all fall to the side as we're giving our hearts to the very next bead. Okay, I hope that's helpful.
So what I understand is like the most basic theme that is chanting your rounds very nicely.
Yes, and all the other things of life, they fade away. Let them go.
I'll give it to someone else because
Okay.
What inspired to start Bhakti Academy? Like, how did it came into existence? Like from idea and like so many wonderful ashrams around many cities. So, how did it came into existence?
Well, Bhakti Academy, Krishna houses are embryonic. It seems like a long time, 2.5 years, right? But it's actually
In May it will be 3 years.
3 years, yeah. Yeah, so coming on 3 years, yeah. So in the early days of ISKCON, like you see these pictures here in Toronto, there were enthusiastic young boys and girls who joined. They went out in the street and raised money and scraped and clawed and somehow managed to put enough money together to make a bid on the church, on this building. And of course, anyway, you know the story, perhaps the owners did not want to sell it to the Hare Krishna, so a bogus organization came in, bought it, and then sold it to ISKCON. So this was all done by very inexperienced young men and women who were very inspired by Srila Prabhupada. You see that picture of Srila Vilas Prabhu on the right? He was one of the few congregational members in those days. Prabhupada once said, "I'm the only Hindu in ISKCON." So the family mood was very extant at that time. It was very thick, and that's what attracted many people. And it was quite a radical step for many, because the movement was young and new and exotic, and it was not, the devotees were not very cultured, not very experienced in any facet of life, spiritual or material, but very enthusiastic, and Prabhupada empowered. In fact, the first devotees to come to Canada was a 21-year-old couple, Jagadish and Lakshmi Moni, who had no money, and they had some back-to-Godheads and an old Volkswagen Bug. And they came to the border, Americans, and in those days, in the Vietnam days, the Canadian government was allowing Americans to avoid the war, conscientious objectors, so they could just immediately emigrate to Canada. So never been to Canada, they just moved in. And they started the temple in Toronto. So that magic of the family mood and the enthusiasm of youth was quite evident in the early days. After Prabhupada's disappearance, it began to wane. And a lot of that was due to the demographics. And people in their early 20s had taken up Krishna consciousness. By the time some years had passed, they concluded they were not going to be living in the ashram forever. And they were not going to, all the men were not going to be sannyasis. And all the women were not going to be sannyasinis. That it was much more natural to be married and to have families. And these young people had given up their education years, their earning years, and all of a sudden found themselves in their late 20s getting married without any real means to develop a household and without any training or preparation for it. So that was a tough time, because a lot of the devotees then kind of lost faith or enthusiasm for the mission. And without Prabhupada there to help these transitions, it was difficult. But it was at that time that the congregations stepped in. The beautiful temples that devotees had established were then oases for the diaspora. And the immigration had opened up. I think it was open in Canada earlier, but America had opened up in the 60s. And so it became a spiritual home for thousands of people. And that kept the temples afloat. I had personally 2 years just after Prabhupada's disappearance of running the Bhakti program in Los Angeles. So the Bhakti program was a little bit more like Marine Corps basic training for brahmacharis. Okay. There was a Bhaktin program also. I don't know what was going on over there. We didn't talk to them. We didn't look at them. But we, 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, the lights go on, the tape goes on, everybody's up and showering, everyone's wearing kopans, it's saffron, so I did that for 2 years, and it was a lot of fun. We had about 25 new people joining, and people previously joined so regularly that it was just sort of understood people will always be joining. So people were joining, we were training, and that was really great. But then those difficult years really kicked in. People stopped joining, and we all had to deal with our ashram needs and development. So for many of us, it was just sort of a pleasant experience of the past to live in an ashram. And I had many years as a temple president in various temples, Vancouver, including Vancouver. I was a Canadian for a brief time. And wherever I would go, I would try to get this kind of ashram recreated without success. So that just added to the thought, the idea that, yeah, this was a great time, a thing of the past, now we're a congregational movement. And in 2006, my wife and I were invited by our friend Ritadvaja Swami to run the center in Gainesville, Florida. Gainesville is a small town, college town in the middle of the state, population 200,000, and home from the University of Florida. There had been a temple there for many years, and their only program really was prasadam distribution on campus. So it was a little different than other temples in that it had sort of an economic base separately from the congregation. The Alachua temple is 20 minutes away, and they're congregationally based. So Gainesville had the prasadam, Alachua had the congregation, and when I came in, my wife and I began attending the morning program, and we immediately doubled the participation from 2 to 4. One morning, we were doing Tulsi Arati, and I remember wondering, there's 50,000 college students a few blocks away, and here are 4 people in their 50s dancing around a plant at 5 in the morning. How are we going to connect? I was thinking maybe they'd just be so impressed of our ecological values that we worship a plant, you know. So during the first couple of years we were there, we had a home in Sharanagati, a summer home. So we'd go to Sharanagati and spend the summertime with Mother Jamuna and Dina Tarani. Oops, I better call her Jamuna Prabhu. Excuse me. I once called her Mother Jamuna, and she said, "Yes, Father Kalakantha." So, for those who don't know, Jamuna Prabhu was one of Srila Prabhupada's earliest disciples in San Francisco, who later went to London and started the temple there with 2 other couples and her husband. And Jamuna had been through so much personal association with Prabhupada, so many experiences in Krishna consciousness. So hearing from her and seeing the mood that she created in the ashram was very formative for us. So we thought maybe we could transplant this in Gainesville. And maybe the ashram could be revived a little bit here. So the temple there had a few apartments which were all rented to college students. And we thought, okay, let's set aside a couple of apartments and see if any students come. So it was kind of a mystical experience because almost as soon as we created the facility, and we had one devotee come from another temple, said, okay, I'll take charge of any newbies. And as soon as we had those ingredients, 3 nice devotees joined. I mean, they were very tentative. They were all college students, and they used to sneak off to Starbucks because, you know, see, students need friends, they need somewhere to stay, and they need meals. And when we could provide those things, it was enough for them to say, okay, I'll give it a try. So much to our surprise, these three moved in, and they were just kind of going along for a month or two, and then boom, all of a sudden the light bulb went on. This is fun. This is really nice. I like chanting. I like hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So when that happened, it was a real incredible experience for us. And so we began saying, okay, how can we develop this more? So we developed a lot of the things we use now, the curriculum for Bhagavatam study, the adjusted morning program timing to make it more reasonable for college students. Next semester there were 6, next semester there was 9, 12. Eventually we had all the apartments emptied out of students and filled up with devotees. And it's gone on like that for 18 years now. Yeah, that same family mood that you're describing, that emerged, this same family mood from the old days. And one of the key factors, Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he gave facilities for women, and he was criticized by his godbrothers. And he said, in rather strong language, he said, those who criticize can do nothing to spread Krishna consciousness, so they will have to be satisfied with their own foolishness. It's not the way it's done in India, but this is not the same culture as India. Yeah, we're not in India. If we want to have the Indian traditional practices, better to be in India. In this part of the world, we need to make it practical and relevant for people. So from the beginning, that was a principle. There's men's ashram, women's ashram, separate but equal facilities, encouragement, engagement, everything. And yeah, that has grown and grown. So about 4 years ago, one of our students was ready to take over the temple presidency, so I retired and started putting my time into seeing if we could export the magic. And it has found a fertile field here in Toronto among you all, so that's my story.
Job well done.
What is that?
Job well done.
Job well done.
Oh, thank you. I just try to stay out of the way. See, we're just capitalizing on Prabhupada's gifts, that's all. Yes. Harinam Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, I've heard it a lot of times from Brihad Madanga Prabhu, especially from Vishakha Prabhu, that we have to be authentic version of ourselves.
Yes.
This question I've asked them a lot of times, but my mind sometimes goes here and there. I'm still kind of like confused. How do we know that if I am becoming the authentic version of myself, or I'm just simply being lazy to change? Let's say if I can say like, oh, I like to sleep around 12 or 1 in the night. That's the authentic version of myself. No, that's not.
Right. An authentic version of ourselves does not mean that we have no discipline. Ashram life is just enough touch of discipline to enable us to come to a higher platform. Just enough touch of discipline to help us give up destructive habits. And at the same time, we all have a unique way of pleasing Krishna. Krishna, if you ever wanted to be God, here's what you could do. If you ever get a chance to be God, you could do this, okay? Expand yourself in unlimited living beings, each of which has a unique way of bringing you pleasure. That's what Krishna does, huh? So each of us has a unique way of bringing Krishna pleasure. Discovering that what that is self-realization. So the authentic version of ourselves means that we are practicing Krishna consciousness not for the purpose of changing ourselves, but for the purpose of uncovering ourselves. So to be the authentic version of oneself means that we do not have to maintain some kind of a veneer or facade of being a devotee in this way or that way. To be a devotee is very straightforward. It means you're chanting the minimum number of rounds, at least for staying in the ashram, that's 8, 16 if you're initiated, and following the 4 regulative principles, and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. that's the activity of a devotee. Now, in our heart, we may or may not have decided if we want to declare ourselves devotees. We may just be checking it out, and the ashram is totally there to facilitate that exploration. So after we make that decision, pursuing Krishna consciousness, we discover the joy in it, we discover the relevance of it, then it's incumbent upon us to stick to the discipline. So the authentic version of myself is to stay up to midnight. Well, that's fine. That's you. You do you, but not in the ashram. See, that much discipline we accept voluntarily. However, within that framework, there's tremendous scope for individual expression. What do you like to do for Krishna? One of the beauties of the ashram is you have a great variety of experiences. Right? There's Harinam, there's music, there's kitchen work, there's book distribution, there's teaching, there's studying, cleaning, all kinds of different things that you do just to have that variety of experience that may have escaped you earlier in life or in other situations. And in the course of that, very often you'll find something that you really enjoy doing, that you're really drawn to do. Maybe a certain kind of writing or a certain kind of teaching. That takes time. So that ashram time is just, again, like a Gurukula. The Gurukula, remember all the things that Krishna and Balaram studied? So having that variety of experience at this time in your youth and just being open to finding out that unique way to please Krishna. The austerity of youth is that you don't know. You understand? You don't fully know who you are. And you have to live with that. And it's uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. You wish, you want certainty and the direction and a definitive idea of who you are and what you're supposed to do. You know what mode that is?
Passion.
Yes. That's the mode of passion pushing us. I got to know, I got to have it all planned out. Right? And staying up to midnight, what mode is that? Ignorance. Okay, that was an easy one. Okay. So being able to live with passion and ignorance pushing us and yet not being affected by it, that's what we learn in the ashram. Because the mode of goodness is where on the time scale?
In the morning? In the morning?
Oh, well, in terms of the 24 hours, but in terms of past, present, and future, where do we find the mode of goodness?
Present.
Present, yes, yes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, forget the past that's dead and sleeps, and never the future fear at all, but live in times that are with you, and progress you shall call. Yeah, so the authentic version of ourself exists in the here and now. It's always there. The question is our mind present with it or is it somewhere else? Okay.
Can you repeat the part where you said that living, understanding the passion and knowing the ignorance?
Okay. I'm just saying, yeah, the gnawing need to know who we are and the lack of fulfillment that every young person feels is a function of the mode of passion. We're wanting definitive plans for our future. We're looking for security in an insecure world. So that is one of the pushings of the mind that has to be tolerated, particularly in your youth. As you grow older and your ashram situation becomes clear and your vocational situation becomes clear, then you have more of a sense of self and identity and goals and so forth. And you're suspending that to be in the ashram to a certain extent, and suspending to a certain extent. Still, the younger you are, the more the uncertainty is there about the future. And that is an austerity to live with. There's no getting around it. Sometimes people try to get certainty right away and then they end up being entangled in situations that are not very conducive for their spiritual life. So as you age more and more, it gets more and more clear. And I was just reading something beautiful the other day that, anyway, when you're young, you're more concerned about what other people think. When you're older, that concern reduces. You don't really care so much. That's the authentic version of ourselves that we seek, that you get in the course of life, but it can't be forced. Okay. All right, what else?
Online question? Yeah, there was anybody? Himanshu.
Sarthak was already speaking. So
There was a question online.
okay, yeah, you can read it.
Okay, so the question was from Gauranga Nityananda. He says, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, without devotees association, how to keep going in bhakti?
Yes, Ramananda Roy was, I believe, it was Lord Chaitanya who asked Ramananda Roy, if I recall correctly, what is the greatest suffering in this world? And Ramananda Roy said, any misery can be tolerated except the absence of association of devotees. So if we are not in a position to have association, first it's important to desire that and to recognize that. And it is possible to maintain and even progress in our Krishna consciousness with limited association, provided that we do those things which are conducive to developing our spiritual life. These days, we can get association in many ways that we did not used to be able to get, through internet, through Zoom, through recordings, and through videos. So filling our spiritual cup the best we can is the only answer to that question. And that takes so much more determination than living amongst devotees. Srila Prabhupada compared living amongst devotees to being on the stock exchange. You can trade stocks from anywhere, but if you're in the stock exchange, then everybody's buying and selling, and there's a lot more action. So sometimes by circumstance we cannot have it. It's a difficult situation, and that devotee who asked this question, Gauranga Nityananda. Yeah. Prabhu, all I can say is just pray to Krishna for having that association as soon as possible. It's nice to have you here. We're glad you tuned in. So obviously you're doing what I'm suggesting. Also, I had times in my life where I had to be alone without association of devotees for various situations. That's especially the time to take shelter of the chanting, and especially in the morning. Again, the sense of loneliness or sorrow you may feel being separated will be something you can be detached from if you chant your rounds early in the day. And there's no situation that lasts. That's the other thing, just, again, the mode of passion wants a resolution. The mode of goodness, okay, I can endure this for some time because I know it's not going to last forever. Whatever it might be. Okay? Sarthak Prabhu.
We'll take one last question of Himanshu Prabhu, then we should start preparing.
Okay. Oh, did you not have a question also?
I follow.
Oh, you have
Yeah.
Then
Just
please.
go and finish.
Okay.
So, yes, so if we get the association of devotees, by mercy of Prabhupada, if we get the association, then our tendency is to do some aprad or some aprad, offenses, committing offenses to them. So it is more dangerous. Is it more dangerous to get association and commit some offenses, or to remain aloof from the association?
No. Better to have association and then learn how to live in association of devotees without committing offenses. That's a big part of the educational experience. And that experience prepares you for all kinds of situations in life, as an employee, as a parent, as a friend. The ashram is sometimes compared to rock polishing. Have you ever seen a rock polisher? You familiar with it? You put in the rough stones, and it's a centrifuge, and then you close it, and they come out all shiny and round. So living in the ashram means you're going to have your false ego stepped on, and you're going to step on somebody else's too. And that can be very shocking in the flow of bliss in the ashram. All of a sudden, you've got this ego battle going on. So often it's based on misunderstanding, and so and even if it's not, it's still incumbent on us to learn how to forgive and forget. So this is a very important part of the ashram experience. That's why we have counselors, and we try to train our counselors to help people work through problems and recognize the value of forgiveness, the value of tolerance, the value of straightforward communication. Those are the things that reduce offenses. So many times we make offenses because we assume things about the other person. Right? We assume they're thinking this or they're doing that. Their action was meant for hurting us. So first step is to give due process. If we're feeling some kind of annoying sensation towards another devotee, be straightforward. I'm feeling this way. Please help me understand, where are you coming from? What do you think about this? Not attacking. You've made me feel bad. But rather just being straightforward. Hey, I'm feeling this way. Burying them won't work, those feelings. If we can have the maturity to talk directly with the other person, that ego battle or that disagreement can become a very strong bond. Just like when you break a bone, when it knits, it's actually stronger than it was before. However, it can only happen if there's straightforward communication. The worst thing to do, if we're annoyed with somebody, is to tell somebody else. Did you see what such and such did? See, that's gossip, prajalpa, politics. That's exacerbating the offense. So we're annoyed with somebody, we just talk to them, hey, I'm feeling this. If they say to us, well, you have no right to feel that way, well, then we know this is a person who maybe doesn't value our feelings. So we may not consider them close confidants. However, especially in a family type environment, there's every chance a person can recognize, okay, what can we do? This was my intention. And there can be some dialogue. So that's the best. If we can't get that dialogue, then we also can look to our counselors and leaders for some facilitated discussion. Anything but gossip. Have you ever heard somebody say, don't tell anyone, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but that's gossip. Himanshu, with last.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a question like, why don't we attend the 4:30 a.m. Mangala Aarti?
Because we're lazy.
Okay.
No, it's because we found, see, this is one of the reasons why the family mood diminished in the 70s. What happened was devotees kind of indigenously in their various countries took up Krishna consciousness and then had their family mood and were developing beautifully. And some of the devotees Prabhupada called to India. And there were no temples in India at that time. So those devotees stayed with some of Prabhupada's godbrothers. There are various complications out of all that. But one of the complications was that when those devotees came back, they said, oh, if you really want to be Krishna conscious, you got to raise your standard. Ba, 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 ba. And that's when the women started going in the back. And that's when then every brahmachari was going to be a sannyasi. And people lost interest and stopped joining. See, so when we started the Krishna House Bhakti Academy in 2008, we had thought, let's make adjustments. We don't have a large formal temple, so we could kind of treat it like a laboratory. So we set the Mangal Artika a little bit later, so students would get up at 5:30. 5:30. Yes, 5:30. I just have to tell you a story, man. I could digress. We used to invite the leaders of other religious student organizations on campus to come and give the class during Srimad Bhagavatam time. It's very interesting if you ever have that opportunity. So we'd invite them to come over and explain their faith experience and philosophy. And it was really good for the students to hear, because they could see the contrast between the depth of Srimad Bhagavatam and faith traditions that are sincere but not as philosophically endowed. So I invited the Episcopalian minister. Would you please come and talk to our students at our Krishna house? And she's a very nice lady. She said, yeah, I'd be happy to. When is the class? I said, 7:30 a.m.? So this is what people are used to, and the kind of hardcore fanatic approach that we all have to really get up early. Well, the problem with that is, unless you can go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock, then it's okay. But if you can't do that, and you have a full day of work and you didn't get enough rest, then I can't practice bhakti. See, so we wanted to hit a sweet spot where students could be steady, and they could at the same time meet their responsibility. Same with 5 days a week morning program. Not in the old days, Prabhu. It was 7 days a week, up at 2, or you're in Maya, Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. What a pleasure to be here. Good to see you. Nice to meet you. Hare Krishna. Haribo. Manchakalpa Darubhyascha Kripa Sindhu